Hello and welcome to the Summer Results Booknick, a podcast about all things books, publishing and more. My name is Emma and today my guest is Rachel Wood. Rachel is the creator of the Rare Birds Book Club. Now before we get started, please take the time to like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, or you can write a review on Apple Podcasts. It will really help our podcast to grow. Now on with the show. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're very welcome. So, first things first, your sort of role is quite different in sort of previous experiences we've had on the podcast. You do something quite different. So obviously, as I say, it's been quite fascinating to sort of look at what you do and all that stuff. So, can you tell us a bit about what you do and sort of what your current role is?
Yeah, definitely. So, basically, I run an online book club and book subscription service called Rare Birds Book Club. And how it kind of works in a nutshell is just exactly like you'd expect a subscription to work. Basically, you sign up at the start of the month. We send out a new book to all our subscribers. It's always fiction. It's all in paperback. And we focus exclusively on female authors, but otherwise there's kind of like a huge range of genres. The book's a surprise in advance, so people don't know what they're going to get before it lands through their letterbox. And then at the end of the month, everybody goes away and reads, and then at the end of the month, we all come back online to the website. There's kind of a private members area, and we kind of get together and discuss the book. So I do a kind of a really long form review of some of the themes and why we picked the book and what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and then there's a whole forum for everybody to kind of muck in and chat and rate the book and talk about how they felt about it. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Basically I got it started because I was kind of looking for something similar and I couldn't find it. And so one day I just thought, well, I'll just give it a go. I'll just create it myself and see what happens.
Yeah, just going for it and just starting
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Totally.
No, that's awesome. As I said, it's starting something new, and you're thinking there's got to be a gap somewhere where this could fit in.
Totally. My background was in writing. I have a master's in creative writing. I've always loved writing, and I've been like a really voracious reader. And I was kind of always recommending books to friends and friends of friends and friends' book clubs and colleagues' book clubs. I was already really in the habit of that. And a lot of people used to say to me stuff like, oh, I would read more, but I never know what to read, or I'm not smart enough for this book, or this isn't for me, or I only like this kind of book. And I was just thinking kind of a lot about that feedback and thinking, if I could offer people kind of almost not quite a guarantee, because you can't promise that everyone's going to love a book, but if I could kind of curate the book selection and go, this is a really great book, this is worth picking up, this is worth your time, I could maybe make the process easier and more fun for people. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's nice having a surprise, I guess, and you want to try and challenge your reading habits as well. So I guess it's always good to, see a variety of books and all sorts. But as I said, we'll get on to talking about how you pick the books a bit later. So first things first, obviously, you see your background and your writing. So what inspired you to start the Rare Birds Book Club, and sort of how did you begin the starting up process?
So once I kind of had the idea, I started with myself, really. I just started by going, okay, what would I want if I were looking for something, if I were going to build a book subscription, and if I were going to do an online book club, what would it be about? So for me, it was about being really, really passionate about kind of championing the female authors that I loved and that I didn't really think were getting the attention they deserved. Certainly, there's the kind of big marquee authors, but there's tons and tons of other books out there, more than any of us could ever read in a lifetime. And there were ones that I was reading that just weren't, I felt like, getting the platform that I thought they deserved. So that was kind of what got the ball rolling for me. And then once I started going, okay, well, it would all be female writers, and I would want a variety of books, and I would want it to kind of be like this. Once I figured out what I wanted the experience to be like, that was kind of the first step. and you know, I didn't have my background's not in publishing. I didn't have a background in retail. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of a book lover, basically. Um, and so in the summer before the book club began, which is just over 2 years ago now, I basically made like a long list of everything I thought I might need to know or do for the book club. And I just started going through it. And I said to myself, well, at some point, I won't be able to find the answer to one of these questions, or something will stump me, or I'll realize it's not going to work. And then I'll stop. But I ended up getting to the end of the list and I had all the answers. And suddenly there was kind of nothing left to do but to just start it properly. So set up the company, got a website domain, and then kind of the rest is history.
Yeah, that's quite a lot, especially if you sort of going, well, I really want to do this, but I guess as a reader, you kind of maybe have a different sort of perspective on it because you are sort of developing something as you go.
Totally. And I think, you know, when I first started, I thought it would be a disadvantage to not really be kind of in the publishing world or in the sort of book selling world already. I thought that was a weakness, but what I actually found out when I started was it was a real strength, because I was really approaching things from the perspective of a reader. And so I was approaching, you know, the book has to be interesting. It has to be a page turner. It has to be, you know, when we only have a little bit of spare time in the evenings or on the commute to work or whatever it is, you know, when you don't have much time, you want to make sure you're reading a good book. And so as I was going, that helped me stay really focused on what would the reader want, which is your customer, basically. What would they want, and what wouldn't they care about? What's not important to them? So yeah.
Yeah, wow. Very, very cool. I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you want to just go for it, go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of moving on, how did you sort of, obviously we were talking about female authors and sort of authors that don't get the amount of attention as what they deserve. How do you sort of choose the specific books that go into these boxes every month? Is it something that you sort of look around and see, oh, that's something that my readership might be interested in? Or is it something like a teen decision, or is it just sort of everyone picks something? How does it work?
So I select the book for everybody. Everybody reads one of two books every month, and there's a short list of two. And in advance, everybody gets an email saying, right, do you want to read book A, which is like, say, for example, a creepy ghost story set in a crumbling mansion, and book B is, you know, an uplifting romantic comedy set in an office or something like that. So everybody gets a choice between two, but I'm picking those two, and how I select them is basically, again, we have some pretty specific parameters. It's fiction. It's all pretty recently published paperback fiction, and all female authors. So that sort of narrows the field quite a bit. And then the rest of the time, basically, I'm just reading in the background all the time, talking to publishers. I work with pretty much all the kind of major, the big five publishers now. And so what they usually do is once every 6 months or once a quarter, I'll have a meeting with them, and they'll sort of take me through what's kind of coming up in their calendar. So what's going to be published in the next 6 months or a year. So I have quite a long runway seeing what's coming. And then basically I just do tons of reading, and the books I like go onto a short list. And then we select our monthly picks from that short list, and how specific books get picked that month, you know, why did we do this one for March and this one in April, that sort of thing, is usually I'm just trying to provide a bit of balance across the course of a year. So if we read a thriller the month before, I don't want to do another thriller back to back. I want to kind of change it up, to make sure that there's lots of variety when we're reading lots of different styles of books and lots of different perspectives. And again, to just try and push readers out of their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, because you kind of sometimes want to read a bit of different, sort of different types of books, or different sort of authors, or just anything really. I think it's always good to sort of read quite widely, and I think that sounds like a great sort of a way to engage people in different kinds of books that maybe they wouldn't normally choose if they popped into their local bookshop.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the thing too is that, you know, most of us as readers, we have kind of really specific comfort zones. So we have, you know, we like to read crime, or we like to read romances, or you like historical fiction, or you like fantasy. Most of us tend to have somewhere where we're really comfortable reading and that we know quite well. And it's not that we don't have an interest in reading outside that genre, but for a lot of people, you don't really know where to start. So if you're not in the habit of reading crime thrillers, there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands published every year. So how do you know what's good and what's not, where to start? So that's kind of where our curation comes in. It's about helping kind of people expand outside of their comfort zones and going, okay, this month we're going to try a thriller. This is a really good example of this genre. We think you'll like it. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, it must be quite fun going to the meetings with the publishers and going, oh, this book would be great. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm like a kid in a candy store.
Oh, absolutely. It's really, really good fun, especially when you're seeing books from some of your favorite authors pop up. So they'll let you know, like, oh, this Margaret Atwood's got a book coming out next year. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
I can take myself.
Yeah, that's really good fun. But then the flip side of it is that you're hearing about these books and sometimes reading the proofs like months and months, sometimes a year in advance. So you'll read a book and you'll be like, I love this. I can't wait to tell everybody. And then you have to just forget about it for 12 months until it comes out.
Yeah, definitely been there. I mean,
Yeah.
I've currently got some books like sat on my shelf that I picked up at a recent event, and I can't wait to get through them. And you're just like, I can't really say anything about the books because I don't want to ruin them. But, as a reader, sometimes it is hard to try and fit in about 20 books when you're trying to keep on top of everything. So it's always good to pace yourself when you read, people.
Definitely.
Because you end up forgetting the book quickly soon after, so you have to... I always try and remember, keep a note of every book that you read every year.
Yeah.
If you can.
Because after a while, you're like, what was that book again? I'm sure I've read that. It's just a distant memory.
Yes, spreadsheet's always your friend when it comes to reading. So obviously kind of moving on to something quite different, what advice would you give to someone that maybe wants to start a literary-based business?
What I would say is go for it. First of all, if you really want to do it, if you have an idea that's that you're really excited about, don't talk yourself down from it. I didn't really feel like I had a lot of experience. I mean, I didn't have a lot of experience in this area before I started the business, and I did figure it out. And the reality is, you can figure it out if you want to, if you're really passionate about it, but it's hard work. So you've really got to want to do it. And I think something that I often feel like some of my competitors or other people working in this kind of like literary business space forget is that they're not creating products and services that they themselves would want and would buy. And when you're setting up a business, and this doesn't just apply for a book business, but you've got to want it yourself. You're your first customer in a way. So to kind of check back with yourself and go, okay, would I buy this? Do I want this? And really kind of challenging your assumptions. Would I buy this? Why or why not? Why do I think this is good? And then once you've done that, move on to somebody else. Move on to a friend who you think would be your target customer and ask them the exact same questions. Would you buy this? Why or why not? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? What do you need? What are you looking for? Those questions that's really the foundation of building a really good service. And particularly in something like a literary-based business where it's all about books, it's a lot about passion. And that's a really good place to start, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as it goes through everything, the amount of people I've sort of spoken to on this podcast, you get a sort of feeling that for everybody in the industry, no matter what you do, even if it's a writer, a reader, a publicist, sorry, I can't say words today, what you're doing or anything like that, it just goes to show that you think about that book. Maybe if you're working in publishing, you think about that book. Would that reader want to read that, or is there a market for that? Someone would want to go out and buy that, or the writer's like, they obviously write for what you want to write, and then they'll find that place for that book for someone to read. And I guess then it's on to you saying, well, they've published that book, obviously this must be for somebody. So it's all kind of working in some kind of cohesion.
Definitely. And I think, at the end of the day, it's such a joy when you're kind of working in books to connect a reader with a book they love. that it just never gets old when somebody comes back to you and says, I couldn't put this down. I finished it in one sitting, or I love this, or this is my new favorite book. There's a real thrill in connecting the right reader with the right book when that really comes together and those two pieces of the puzzle fit together. It just feels absolute magic.
Yeah. And then plus when you get that sort of feedback going, I absolutely loved this month's subscription, I can't wait for the next book, and it must make you feel like I've done my job really well.
Absolutely. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling when somebody comes to you and says they loved it.
That's awesome. I know, it's just books, it's the perfect sort of relationship between reader and publisher. It's just books and books, and everyone loves it, and it just sort of works for everybody. So why else would we not all be here if we didn't love reading and books? So
absolutely.
Yes, it's all great. So this is the tricky final question. You probably get this quite a lot. I know you pick books every month, but what is a book that you've read recently that you sort of would like to recommend to everyone?
God, what to choose? One that we read this month in the subscription is Oyinkan Braithwaite's My Sister the Serial Killer. I love that one, and it's just absolutely brilliant. It's fun, and it's sharp, and it's a little bit dark. It has a bit of dark humor in it. It's a great read, and it's a short one too. So if you're really pressed for time, it's a great one to pick up.
Yeah, awesome. If you, as said, time and reading is trying to get the perfect amount. If you can do a long book, do a long book. If you can't do a short book. There's always going to be a book for you to sort of suit your time constraints, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's something out there for everyone.
Exactly. That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thank you. That's it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening. You can follow her work on Twitter at Rare Birds Book Club. If you'd like to be involved with the podcast, you can get in touch through Twitter at Novelem16. Use hashtag Slothcast. Or you can send me an email at slumberyslothbooknook@gmail.com. You can view our episodes on YouTube or listen on Podbean or Apple Podcasts, all under the name Slumbering Sloth Book Nook. You can also follow us on Instagram to see our episode trailers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next week. Bye!